Good morning, Boker Tov. Welcome back to 10 Minutes of Meaning. Please help yourself to coffee and refreshment. I want to thank our generous sponsor, Shmuel and Esther Shaiwitz, in honor of their parents and children, for sponsoring our 10 Minutes of Meaning. We've been learning HaRamban, the Ramban's letter, originally written to his son, but really written to each and every one of us to help us be the best version of ourselves and to not only read the Ramban's letter, but much more significantly to live the Ramban's letter, to implement it into our lives, and to follow the formula for the best life will bring with it all kinds of incredible bracha. So the Ramban's first message, it began with the pasuk in Mishlei, of course, to listen to our father and mother, but told us the first quality to conquer is anger. Tisnaheg tamid, to transform ourselves, condition ourselves to calm people of peace and harmony, to speak softly and gently. And the way that we conquer anger is not to think about or address anger at all, but simply to speak calmly. And when we do, we eliminate anger from our heart. And what fills our heart instead? Midas ha'anava. She mida tova mikol midas tovas. And the Ramban told us that if anger is the worst categorically bad quality that a human being could have, anger clouds judgment, anger self-sabotages, anger makes us make mistakes, then if we remove and eliminate anger from our heart, we fill that space instead with the best quality, the greatest quality there is, which is anava, humility. Humility is the greatest quality. Mida tova mikol midos. Shenemar eikav anava yiras Hashem, as the pasuk in Mishlei tells us that because of anava, when we live with humility and modesty, when we see ourselves in a context and a perspective, then there's room and space for yiras Hashem. If we have an inflated ego, as we've shared before, not my own, but ego stands for edging God out. If we have an inflated ego, we think we're all that. We have power, we have fame, we have money, we have influence, and we think we're all that. We're smart, we're handsome, we're athletic. We think, therefore, we're so great. If we live with an ego, we've edged God out. There is no room for yiras Hashem. Hashem can't dwell in the same space as a person who has an inflated ego. But eikav anava, but if we live with humility, then yiras Hashem. Now there's room for yiras Hashem, and that humility, that modesty is what comes to help us. I mentioned last week, as we've been saying in Tehillim, Me'ayin yavo ezri, where will my help come from? Yavo ezri, my help comes from ayin. When we live with a sense, with an attitude of ayin, I'm an ayin and an ephes, I'm a gornished and a nothing. If we realize who we are, if we realize how little we are, if we realize ultimately shiftless ha'adam, apathetic we are, me'ayin, from a sense of ayin, then yavo ezri, that's where our help comes from. That's what our parsha tells us. Zos Torah sa'adam adam kiyamas ba'ol mishamemis atzmo aleha. Torah can only be miskayim. We can learn Torah, steigen Torah, listen to Torah, but Torah is only miskayim. Torah is only really fulfilled when we're memis the atzmo. If we can get rid of and eliminate the atzmo, the ego, if we live with anava, then there's room for yiras Hashem. There's a big question that arises. Va'avura anava, the Ramban continues. Because if we can achieve and live with anava, modesty and humility, va'avur ha'anava, tala alibcha midas hayira. Then, if you're living humbly through life, what can you acquire next? Midas, the quality of yira, not fear. Fear is a mistranslation of the word yira. Yira is awe. Yira is awe of Hashem. There is a low level of yira, yiras ha'onesh, but yiras ha'romamos really is a greater sense of awe. So if you don't have anava, if you don't have humility and modesty, so you're never in awe of anything. Nothing impresses you. I've shared many times that's the challenge of our generation. We are living in the generation of eh. Eh means, what'd you think? What'd you think of the shir? What'd you think of the speaker? What'd you think of that restaurant? What'd you think of that concert, that singer? What do you think of this piece of art? Everything's a big eh. It's so hard to impress a generation who are the information age. They have access to everything. They have AI. They have all the answers in life. If you have all the answers at your fingertips, terabytes and terabytes, if you have all the answers, then everything is a big eh. Rav Hutner writes in Pachad Yitzchak, that's the midah of a malik. The midah of a yid is not it's whoa, awe. It's awe. A yid looks at everything and sees Hashem and says, wow, Kadosh Baruch Hu is incredible. Look at his world. Look at his world. Look at nature. Look at history. Of course, look at the Torah Kadosha. Everything is wow. There's awe. Midah of Amalek was mikra, chance, randomness, happenstance. So only with anava, only with humility, can you say, wow, everything is amazing. Everything is amazing. Someone once went into Mozart's home where they have his piano. There was a tour of teenagers, One of the teenagers jumped to sit on the bench and start playing the piano. And there was a famous pianist, a world-class pianist, who was invited several times and toured that home and never played the piano. And when asked why, he just said, I'm unworthy. I can't. How could I touch those same keys? How could I play those same keys of such a great? And that contrast of the generations. The one that jumps and says, ooh, looks like fun, let me play. And the one that says, whoa, there's something here worthy to have awe of, to have distance from. Lahavdil, the Ribono Shalom. This is his world. It's not a playground. We live not with a sense of but a sense of awe. Wow, wow. So only ba'avur anava tala libcha midas hayira. Only if you say, I'm humble, I'm modest, I'm unworthy, I'm inadequate, then you can now say, okay, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you're everywhere and you're amazing, you're incredible, you're everything. But if you think, I'm everything and I have all the answers, then Hashem, who's Hashem? What? Hashem? He's He's So only ba'avur anava tal libcha midas hayira. So here's the kasha. Here's the question that arises. The Ramban just told us that midas anava is what? Midah tova mikol midos. It's the greatest of all the midos. If it's the greatest of all the midos, you'd expect it to be the end of all the midos, the climax, the culmination, the completion of all the character traits. It's midah tova mikol midos. And yet, there's a midah that comes after it. If you live with anava, then you get to yira. But I thought anava is the midah tova mikol midos. So if there's something after anava, greater than anava, something anava leads to, then anava is not the midah tova mikol midos. So which is it? Is anava the greatest of all the midos? Or is yira? Does anava lead to something else which is even greater? We'll come back to that question. But let's spend 2 more minutes on what is anava. So how did Chazal know? Because they knew that anava is the important midah tova mikol midos. And as we've shared many times, the Ramban and the Ramban both write. The Ramban here Iggeres the Ramban. The Rambam writes in his Mishnah Torah, there are 2 qualities. Even though we look the golden mean, be measured, be balanced, be normal, just live the golden mean. But there are 2 qualities we have to live in the extreme. One is be extreme to never get angry, and the other is extreme humility. Ma'od ma'od abishval ruach, to live extreme with humility. And humility is the midah tova mikol midos. How did Chazal know that? So Rav Chaim Vital says they knew it from Parshas Ba'aloscha. The fact that the Torah itself testifies Hashem endorses Moshe, and what quality does he endorse him with? Moshe had incredible qualities. He was a super genius. He was brilliant. Moshe was pious and righteous. Moshe was giving and caring and had empathy. Moshe had an endless list of outstanding, extraordinary qualities. And yet, when Hashem comes to endorse Moshe, which is the quality he highlights? He's anav mikol adam. That Moshe Rabbeinu's quality of anivus is what makes him unique. And if Hashem chooses to highlight anivus, humility, and modesty, then it must be because it is the midah tova mikol midos. It must be the peak and pinnacle. It must be the greatest of all of the midos. What is anivus and how do we achieve it? The Gemara at the end of Sota tells us about certain character traits and reflects how the art of those character traits was lost. Anava no longer continued after the death of Rav Yehuda HaNasi, and Rav Yosef comes in and he says, 1 second. How could you say that? Ika ana, but there's me. I'm still the greatest. I'm the most humble. How could you say humility died with Rav Yehuda HaNasi? I'm still here. And look how humble I am. Look how humble I am. Seems like a contradiction, a famous question. Anivus is ordinarily translated, we've been translating it inaccurately, not precisely. How do we translate anava usually? As humility. But humility is a Latin word, and it comes from humus, not humus, but humus, which means earth, from the earth, earthly. And most translate humility as being lowly. You're garnished. We spoke yesterday in the Parsha Shir about why the Paraduma includes the Eitz Erez and the Azov. The cedar tree is greatness, and the Azov, the hyssop, is lowly humility, and godless Adam and shiftless Adam, and they need to see with 2 eyes, peripheral vision, the balance, the perspective between the two. But humility, if you think humility comes from the word earth and lowly, that's not what anava means. Anava doesn't mean you're nothing, you're future worm food, you're pathetic, you're terrible, you're garnished, you're unworthy, you're insignificant. That's not what anava means. What anava means is that you're great and you're wonderful. You're practically godlike, and you carry God. You're a chelak elokah mimal mamash. Even on Dalet Tammuz, there's still a lot of quote, you're a chelek elokah mimal mamish. You're a piece of God. Literally, you're great. Humility or anava is not thinking you're not great. It's knowing where does your greatness come from? It comes from Hashem. And it is on loan, and it is never part of your permanent collection. And whatever gift He gave you, a gift of a brilliant mind, a gift of artistic ability, a gift of athleticism, a gift of charisma, a gift of financial acumen and prowess, whatever gift He gave you, oratory skills, it is on loan. It could disappear any moment. He can take it back. And the question is, what will you do with it? And the shoresh, the root of the word anava, ayin nun hey, means an answer or respond. Anivus is to look at yourself and say, what are my talents? What are my skills? What are my blessings? What are my gifts? And how will I use them to be the answer? How will I use them to create and to be the response? I once read, what we are is God's gift to us. What we become is our gift to God. What we are is God's gift to us. So therefore, don't say kochi v'otzim yadi, ki hu anosein lecha koach. What we are is God's gift to us. What we become with it, that's our gift back to God. So anava is not thinking less of yourself. It's thinking of yourself less often. Anava, the real definition of anava is not lowliness, being pathetic. That's not a Jewish value. The real definition of anava is not thinking less of yourself. It's thinking of yourself less often. So Rabbi Yosef says, Ika ana. There's me. I'm still here and I'm humble. And humble means I know my gifts, I know my skills, I know my qualities, but I know where they come from. I have them in a context of perspective. Rav Moshe, in his introduction to Iggeres Moshe, talks about, I have my own halachic opinions. Who am I to disagree with the Chassam Sofer and the Nod of Yehuda? Elamai. I think I'm Higia Lahora, and I have a responsibility. Rav Moshe was among the most humble people. Anyone who knew him, he was an incredible anav. So how did he have the brazenness to take on these giants? He writes in his Akdama, why? Because if a person feels they can live with those skills, those blessings, those qualities, and to do it with a sense of humility. Pasuk in Mishlei says, "V'la'anavim yitain chen." To the humble, Hashem gives chen, and therefore, when one lives without kas is chaos. Noach is chen, came after the Mabul. Rav Melech Biderman says the Mabul is bilbul. It was chaos and kaas everywhere, and the antidote to chaos and kaas is chen, is Noach, and chen is from anava. When a person is humble and modest, so you'll never raise your voice, you never yell, you never indulge anger, and then you're able to live with anava. When you live with anava, now you can live with yira, and this is our last year till after Tisha B'Av, but we'll come back next time, talk about the answer to that question. Is anava the midah tova mikol amidos, or does it lead to something else, which is yira? We'll keep you thinking about that for a couple weeks and pick up next time. May we hear besoros tovos.